Welcome to the Counterpoint podcast, y'all. We finally named this thing. First, I want to talk about just New Year's resolutions and why those don't typically pan out for the majority of people.
Goals without an action plan are fruitless, and that leads to a lot of disappointment and frustration. But your life will improve when you actually start to embody the things that you say you value.
We want you all to go into the new year with a different mindset so you don't repeat the same 6 months of your life over and over like most people do in this reality. The majority of the time, it's going to take time. The gray matter in your brain, it takes time to change.
Who do I need to be in order to achieve that goal? And the fear around that is you don't actually know that person.
Welcome to the Counterpoint. Welcome to the Counterpoint podcast.
Yeah, that was a good intro.
Welcome to the Counterpoint podcast, y'all. We finally named this thing
Yeah, we did.
Counterpoint.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it too.
It was, I don't remember who came up with it, but probably you. But I love it. I think it's awesome. Do we want to talk about why it's Counterpoint or just get right into this shit?
Go for it.
Well, if we want to be sappy here, you are my no, you are my soul's counterpoint. I'm stealing that line from Wedding Crashers, but
Oh, that's where you got it from.
yeah, but it's
Okay.
true. Owen Wilson was it Owen Wilson or was it? I don't remember who said it, but anyway, that's from that movie, but it's true. There's a lot to it. So number one is that, but within that, we are a counterbalance to one another in many ways, I believe, and many other people have said that. My best friend literally told me that yesterday just from watching us, and it's authentic and true. I mean, there's a lot of things that I suck at and I have skill deficits in, and there's a lot of things you're really good at that help me either learn more, acquire those skills, or just even us out quite a bit. And I feel maybe vice versa in some places, but there's just a lot of complementary things about our relationship that I just am in love with and always have been. And yeah, it's like it's just Counterpoint just really rings true as well as far as the stuff that we talk about and your uncanny ability to look at things from all angles and provide a counterpoint, even if it's not what you believe, but to like you personally, but to add context. I'm serious, to add context to the entire discussion.
It also drives you mad.
Only when we're having a real conversation, like between you and I, personal, behind, and it's like, what do you believe?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the crux of it. It's a good trait to have, and difficult when you want a clear answer.
But when I understand it more, just like all things, I have more appreciation, more patience. So yeah, it's we're excited about the name. We already branded it. We're launching this. Well, it's by the time you see this, as far as on YouTube, obviously we've been launched for a while, but launching for real. Those of you listening to this, January 1st. And today, speaking of January 1st, today's topic is all about New Year's resolutioners, new year, new me, kind of that whole story mentality people get into. And we want you all to go into the new year with a different mindset so you don't repeat the same 6 months of your life over and over like most people do in this reality. We want people to be able to actually make the behavior shifts that cultivate the results that you want, the outcome that you want, and not get locked into this dynamic overhaul of habits that people try to commit to January 1st and then inevitably fall short, feel like failures, and get back into the same old shit by February, if not sooner. So let's dive into that. As far as like, first I want to talk about just New Year's resolutions and why those don't typically pan out for the majority of people. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to be a better version of yourself. Both of us are here for that. We're here to help people do that. We do that. We want that for ourselves. It is my belief that you'll never do that overnight. And the process that it takes to actually cultivate a new reality is a very upward trending, gradual one, not one that is overhauled overnight. What do you think about the whole concept of New Year's resolutions?
I think they're great. I think for some people, it gives them hope. Like if you had a really rough year and you're feeling like you're stuck, or just like no matter how inspired you tried to be, how productive you tried to be, how aspirational you tried to be, if life kicked you in the nuts, like there's hope with, okay, it's a new year. So I don't see it as a negative. I also don't like, the one thing I don't like about it is the truth that it's arbitrary. It's a day. It's January 1st, as there's been 2025 January 1st. And so it's not the make or break thing. It can be, again, a good place to think about new beginnings and what you want and where you want to go and how you can get better, or things that you want to put top of mind as far as goals. But goals without an action plan are fruitless, and that leads to a lot of disappointment and frustration. And so it's how you go about thinking about the goal, strategizing the goal, planning the goal, and then the expectations that you have around the goal that either makes it something that comes to fruition or not. But as far as the idea of New Year's resolutions, I don't think they're bad.
Right. It's not what people want to achieve, it's how they're going about doing it. And so I made this point earlier. This is the thing that I wanted to bring to people's awareness. The way that I think about it is like January 1st, it's a calendar date. The calendar year is a man made construct. It is just something that dictates what we do at certain times of year when the earth is rotating and revolving around the sun, right? So why would we assign behavior change at any particular moment in time other than now? That is my biggest question with it, and I'm asking from a non-judgmental place. If we just zoom out and we try to understand what is it about January 1st that makes us more likely to change our behavior? Because again, every outcome that people desire, that we work with at least, revolves around changing behavior to get there on a daily basis. And if you look at any kind of behavior modification, there's very, very few people, they exist, but there's very, very few people that can just overnight decide, hey, I'm done smoking. I'm going to start exercising consistently every day. I'm going to start eating nothing but meat. Whatever the commitment is, the idea is that you want to have a healthier version of yourself, or you want to think about things differently, or you want to see something different in the mirror, or you want to treat someone differently, or you want to think about something differently. The majority of the time, it's going to take time. If we talk about thinking about things differently, it's something obviously you can speak at length on, but the neuroplasticity that transpires with behavior change, that takes time. The gray matter in your brain, it takes time to change. And so thinking that you can all of a sudden commit to a very large change in your day-to-day life overnight or over the course of a month or what have you, 75 days with 75 hard. We just did a video on that recently. It's if you really ask yourself, it's unreasonable, it's unrealistic, and it's not that you're a piece of crap if you don't follow through on it. It's just that your commitments were unrealistic to begin with compared to your current reality and your current level to change.
So I would say every single person can decide to be different right now. There's nothing stopping you from not smoking or going for a walk or going to the gym. The capability question is not the question that we have to answer. You're more than capable of deciding right now that you want to be a different person and then doing what you think needs to be done as a consequence to orienting towards that. Totally, totally realistic to say you can. The problem is you won't. And the reason that you won't is because you don't know how. And so it's not you're not capable of completely changing the way that you function right now. It's that everything that you know about how to move through your day to day is based on the days that you lived to this point. And so if you're trying to conceptualize how you would do that without, and the other thing too is you're going to be tempted to do what you've always done. Your brain has 70,000 thoughts on average per day. You don't entertain all of them. And the same thing with you operate, whether we like it or not, consistently on an autopilot fashion. You wake up every day, you roll out of bed, we get coffee, brush your teeth, go have breakfast, go for a walk, whatever your natural routine is going to be. So any change in a routine or an automatic behavior requires consciousness. You have to be aware of what you're doing in order to choose to do differently. And when life is stressful, when there's external pressure, when there's people, when there's things, when all of these other variables compound, your brain is going to quickly circuit to how you've moved through this previously. And so this is where the hardest part about any transformation is not the things that you know that you need to do. It's one, building a skill of awareness, and two, pursuing uncertainty in the face of adversity. That is difficult for most people to be able to overcome because it's easier to move through life doing what you've always done. Even if it results in suffering, it's suffering that you know that you can tolerate. If you choose a different behavior and you don't know the consequences of that behavior, and then your mind will catastrophize potential outcomes with that behavior, you will talk yourself out of doing it in the first place. And again, all of it comes down to not knowing and the desire to need to know, which will keep you stuck, and not understanding the consequences of doing that and what that might bring to you. And when I say consequences, consequences aren't always bad. It has like a negative connotation to the idea, but conceptually, a consequence is a side effect of anything that you choose to do. Every action has a reaction. And so allowing yourself to learn through that process, I'm not saying, and this is where like transformation has to occur within something called the window of tolerance. If you step outside of that, you will revert back harder, reinstilling a current belief that you have because it was too far outside of your willingness. And so if you think about what is a small decision, I know this sounds trivial, but what is a small decision that you can make today that orients you towards that outcome that you're aiming at? It doesn't have to be everything, nor does it have to be perfect, because the conceptualization that you have around being that version of you that is the ideal, you may never achieve that. That does not mean that you should not pursue the ideal version of you. The most beautiful and difficult part of the human experience is that all of the friction that we experience is in your own head. You can do whatever you want to do, but your willingness to do that and to detach from the outcome of something, your expectations around it, the time horizon, the difficulties that will come with that, the things that you're comfortable doing versus things that you're unfamiliar with. Like all of those things are things that we work through in our minds constantly. And because we don't have answers, we stay stuck because at least you know what you're going to get here.
100%. And so I want to hit on a couple things because I believe we're very aligned with how, like tactically, I always have a way that I believe people that helps a lot of people work through that window of tolerance, right? And then so fallacious thinking around the result that you want versus what it takes to get that result. So a lot of people think that if you have this extreme result that you want in your mind,
Mm-hmm.
with like a way you want to look, right? I want to look like that, and it's usually some kind of extreme result. I've worked with women for years, and I can't tell you how many times someone has said, "I want to look like this," and it's like a Photoshop fitness model who's on steroids. I'm like, okay, so we have this extreme look what we want. So there's obviously a aspect of this where it's like, is what you want actually realistic? And that's not to condescend or be judgmental. It's like, make sure your what you're looking for, especially with your body, is realistic. But if we just keep it to the fallacious thinking around thinking that in order to get a, super big result, you have to do extreme shit to get there. I see a lot of people who have this erroneous thinking around, well, the people who are fit are doing extreme things to get fit. And oftentimes, the people with the body that you want have just done really simple, attainable stuff long enough over a long enough time horizon, consistently enough to look the way that they do now. They don't do Whole30. They don't do keto. They don't do extreme shit in order to look the way that you want to look. So if we think about this extreme result that you want or this big result that you want, and then your belief around what you need to do to get that result, it's oftentimes way simpler and way more attainable than you think. And in order to take those steps to stay in that window of tolerance, it takes small micro commitments for the majority of people that compound over time rather than these huge commitments that you continuously fall short of. And as you already alluded to, reinforce that belief that you're not good enough, that you can't, that you're a flake on your own word, that you're non-committal, that you're not, all those things get reinforced when you set that bar so high and then fall short of it inevitably. Whereas if you were to do the painstaking work of making a very, very, very small, attainable micro commitment, for instance, I'm going to work out once this month. That sounds crazy to most people. Like, there's no way I'll progress committing to one workout this month. But what you're likely to do there is overachieve and feel good about what you're doing and then keep doing it, building those belief bricks with more small commitments just outside of that threshold where you're at, your growth edge, we'll call it. And maybe one workout a month is, too small, but I'm just giving an extreme example. You could say one workout this week. Don't put a time frame on it. Don't put anything, just one workout this week. Then you do that. Maybe you do 2 or 3. You're going to feel good about following through on your own word and trust yourself for more commitments. And you're going to feel better than the person that committed to 7 workouts January 1st, did 3 and felt like a failure. Both of you did 3 workouts. You feel like a winner. They feel like a failure. And the only difference was they set that mile marker way too high.
So a couple things I think are important. When you look at going back to the I want to look like that, I don't think people think about the fact that there's a part of you that probably doesn't actually want that. And what I mean by that is you have no idea. And I mean, genuinely, you have no idea what that person did to get there. And the decisions, the commitment, the time, the sacrifices, the missed moments that they had, the internal suffering, which I can speak from my own experience. Those are trade-offs that you may not want to make. And you might start doing the thing that you think that they're doing and hate it the entire time, and you will quit. And if that's the only way that you can conceptualize achieving that goal, you're going to feel like it's impossible for you. All of these are based on assumptions, which you have no actual evidence of in the pursuit of that. And so when it comes to extreme results, the only reason that you think they're extreme is because you're looking at the time horizon that's associated with them. One of the hardest things to do is to detach yourself from the time horizon in which it has to happen for you, because you don't get to control that. And trying to control it will exhaust you. Instead, think about, like Mav said, as far as micro commitments. I'll tell you a story because I think stories help connect the dots. I have a client who struggles with eating distracted, right? And so the idea of not eating distracted causes her more distress because she is somebody who's always trying to predict what she needs to do, and she's fearful of forgetting the things that she needs to get done because her self-worth, self-esteem, self-perception comes from, if I can do all of these things for other people, I will be loved. Right? Most things that we do as humans is to pursue acceptance, validation, and love. It starts and ends there. And so when I tell her that I want her to focus on not eating distracted, that feels very overwhelming because if I forget something, then I won't be loved, right? You can see that. So instead of saying, I want you to not eat distracted anymore, she tried with 1 meal and that didn't work. So micro commitments. I want you to eat the first 3 bites of your meal, not on your phone. After that, you can pick it up and do whatever you want. And so this is where, 1, deciding that you're going to automatically stop something that you naturally do, that you're probably not even aware that you do, is not likely. And if you expect that from yourself, or you put pressure on yourself that once I do this once, I have to do it forever, you're already causing a lot of internal anxiety. And so saying, I'm going to try this for a moment, and if I don't like it, I don't have to keep doing it. Where you might find that you do enjoy it, and then you will select to continue to choose to do it. That's where your own free will matters because you get to decide what is going to function optimally for you long term. But your willingness to try something and see that it didn't kill you and you weren't rejected or dismissed, unloved, judged, shamed, or whatever it might be that you fear that motivates you to behave that way, that's where you can start to build momentum in the right direction. And so it's not even a whole day. It's not a week. It's not every time that you are faced with something, you have to do that. And if you don't, you failed and you shouldn't even try and you're always going to be this way. Again, creating that story is going to keep you stuck in a cycle of suffering. Whereas if it's like, for 1 minute, I'm going to sit still and maybe that's it. And then you can get up and do what you've always done. But you made progress even in that 1 minute of time. And then you can build on top of those things. And while it might feel trivial, if you've been stuck with trying to make these changes for a very long period of time, I'm going to ask you to give yourself a little room for grace and just try. And then decide how you feel in the aftermath of that one moment of a different decision that you make.
I love that. You're so damn smart. I'm so glad we got these notepads too, because now I can write down things as you say them. Client stories, right? Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times we've had clients who come in and they're like, I got to have this result or else. And this is what I want to look like. And this is the amount of weight I want to lose. And they're so attached to that. And then 6 to 8 months, maybe sometimes a year, but usually like 6 to 8 months in, I can't tell you how many of those same clients have completely let go of what they came in thinking they needed to have in order to be happy. And instead, they have this, because of they've gone about it the way that we're describing, they have this self-trust about them They have less food fear. They have less anxiety for when they travel. They're setting boundaries with people. They trust themselves to follow through on the shit that they say they're going to do. And that has now replaced all of the other things that they thought were going to make them happy, such as that 25-pound weight loss or that waist size or that thing they wanted. All those things happen as a byproduct of these behaviors and these new ways of thinking that they've cultivated. But the amount of levity that these people experience when they stop being so damn hard on themselves for not doing the unrealistic thing they had in the first place. And then the other part of that was understanding yourself. Like, if you, one thing I've learned from you, and it continues to be reinforced, is the more that I understand myself, the more patience, the more understanding I can have for you, the more compassion, curiosity I can bring to the table. You can't give what you don't got, right? The more that you understand yourself, the more compassion you'll have for the things that you keep criticizing yourself or falling short on. If you understand yourself better and you know where these things are coming from, you gain the awareness. You've referenced awareness many, many times, and I agree. You can't build hardly anything unless you have awareness. The awareness and understanding of why you do the things you do will give you a lot of compassion and patience, enough to where you stop beating yourself up and kicking yourself while you're down, and then you can keep moving forward instead of pulling yourself off of the path to progress. Because oftentimes it's not even the stuff that we do, it's how we speak to ourselves after the stuff that we do that we are so critical about, that is more damaging than the actual stuff we're doing. Example would be like if you think you binged over the weekend, and if you're not tracking calories, I bet you probably didn't, but if you think you did, the shit talking and the overcorrecting that you do after that weekend splurge is worse than what you likely did on the weekend and more damaging long term. And so when you understand why you do that, it will give you the space to have grace, forgiveness, compassion, and patience so that you can actually do new stuff and you're not so busy kicking yourself while you're down.
One thing that you said and why awareness is so important is that you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge exists or even look at or be curious around why you do it. The second layer of that is if you identify yourself with a behavior, you will continue to have negative self talk around your ability to do something that's different. And so when you think about a behavior, and we'll just point at one thing, let's say that there's probably something that you're doing right now that you know that you shouldn't be doing, but you continue to do it anyways, right? Okay. And if you think it's maladaptive or it's preventing you from achieving something, yet it's one thing that you can't figure out how to change, you see this as something that you just need to stop. Emotional eating is a great example of this. The problem with that is you fail to recognize that that behavior is a solution to another problem. And so when you think about the problem as a solution, then it opens up a curiosity gap. What is it that I'm solving by behaving this way? What pain am I avoiding or what pleasure am I pursuing? And if you can sit with that, you'll notice that there's something that motivates you to do that. Maybe you're lonely, maybe you're bored, maybe if every time you get negative feedback, you feel shame, like you're broken, you're not good enough, you're a problem. And the only thing that allows you to escape that state of being is food. That's a learned behavior. And so your willingness to sit and understand that problem, and then you can think about, well, how else could I go about moving through that state? Because right, wrong, or indifferent, feelings are fleeting. And oftentimes we try to escape a negative emotion with a behavior that will further create negative emotion in the aftermath, right? You don't binge eat and then feel awesome about the fact that you just did that. And so the other thing I have said many, many times that I don't think people understand, and this is where I'm going to get into being a therapist, but binge eating is a form of self harm. And this is also where, again, aggressive restriction is a form of self harm. It is not about if you lose weight that says that you respect yourself. No, it's how you lose weight that does. And creating a cycle of suffering, going through an extreme protocol to try to get yourself to fit a certain mold, only is reinforcing a belief that you have to be something that you're not in order to be valued, accepted, appreciated, or loved. None of those things are true, but those are beliefs, and they drive your motivation to behave in a certain way or to hold on tightly to a certain outcome. And you have to be willing to detach from that because when it comes to change, right, all of this is I'm changing my behavior. Why? Because if I keep doing what I'm currently doing, I will continue to be where I'm at. That is fundamentally true. And so then it's who do I need to be in order to achieve that goal. And the fear around that is you don't actually know that person. You don't know that version of you, and you don't know what it's like to be her. You can conceptualize it, but you also don't know what comes with it, nor the things that you will trade off in order to pursue that. People often think about pursuing goals with what you need to do. I need to do this and this and this and this. Awesome. What do you need to stop doing? What do you need to let go of? What is holding you back from committing to that thing all the way in? Because you can't half step it. You've got to be in. And also know you can always go backwards. You can be exactly who you are right now if you decide to pursue this thing and it doesn't work out, nor does it bring you the things that you want. But what I will tell you, and based on what you've said about the client experience long term, is when you meet that version of you, you realize that the things that defined you previously no longer have power over you. And that's where it becomes fun, because you do trust yourself. You are willing to overcome adversity. You've seen yourself do it dozens of times. You create space for yourself. You say something when you have something to say. You set boundaries with people. You meet your needs. And it makes your life better, because there is a ripple effect. How you behave right now in the context of every relationship that you have continues to create these self-perceptions and expectations of other people of you. When you start to change, especially if you're a mom, you start to represent everything that your children, you want for them. You want them to take care of themselves. You want them to be able to vocalize their needs. You want them to be able to create containers of space where they can connect with themselves or have a creative outlet where they get to just fully express without pressure or judgment around that. You want those things for your children. You have to lead by example in doing that. And not only do they deserve that from you, but you deserve that from yourself. So, yeah, tangent done.
I love it. So the reason why we get passionate about this stuff is because, listen, guys, like our society, technology, social media, mainstream news, it's creating a generation of NPCs. We had a conversation about what NPCs are earlier, and this is, if you're not familiar with NPCs, it means non-playable character. It's a video game term. It's a term for people who just exist. They don't really have personality, identity. They say the same thing over and over. They live the same 6 months of their lives over and over, and there are more NPCs by the day because people, obviously there's a lot of societal influences here, cultural, socioeconomic, et cetera. However, it is a decision to not want to go into the uncharted territory of growth, and we want you to have the courage to do that. There are people who end up being bitter because they didn't have the courage to make decisions that would change their lives when no one was in their corner, and we don't want you to end up that way. Sometimes it is scary to make change. Oftentimes it's scary to make change. Actually, it's usually scary. It's uncertain. I made this analogy. I hope you're okay with me sharing. You okay with me sharing the jungle analogy that I made for like what's familiar and then you get out of the jungle, right? If you're used to being in a jungle and using a machete to cut down vines, and that's been your familiar for so long, when you finally fight through it and you see on the other side this meadow, this calm meadow of new reality, it can be really scary, and you may not know what to do when you get in that meadow because you're just used to chopping down vines with a machete. It's all you know, and it's tempting to go back to that because it's your familiar, it's the neighborhood that you hate, but at least you know your way around. We want you to have the courage to go into that meadow because life can be peaceful. It can be rewarding, fulfilling, intimate, all the things. And we want that for you. That's why we are always biased to what we talk about here. Now that we've called everybody out on their bad behavior and all of the fallacious thinking and everything, I think people might want to know, okay, got it. What the hell do I do going into January 1st? What should I do? If I don't make resolutions like I've always made, I don't do 75 hard, and I don't do all the things that I previously committed to, and what my entire rest of my family's doing, if I don't do a GLP like my Aunt Margaret's urging me to do, what do I do to create change in my life, in my health, in my body?
So I think the first thing is, what do you want? What do you want? And like genuinely ask yourself that question. What do you want? What do you want? Not what do you think that you need to want, what do you want to want, but what do you want? And then if you were to conceptualize how you might go about doing it, what would you do? What would be the structure around that goal, right? If we're going to use fitness as an example, one of the things I would encourage you to do if you've always started a diet every year is to detach yourself from needing to start a diet. I need you to do it differently this time. So let go of following some arbitrary protocol, because that's not going to be something that integrates into your current lifestyle. You do not have to let go of every element of your life to achieve a goal. You don't have to do that. However, you need to think about, what do I need to change? Again, one very good question is, what is one behavior I'm engaging with right now that does not align with that goal? What is one thing that I'm doing right now that I know that I should not be doing? Most of the time, like I said earlier, people think about all the things they need to start doing. many of you are hindered by the things that you need to stop doing that you're not willing to stop doing. And so allowing yourself to look at that, maybe that's canceling your workouts or telling yourself you'll do it later and you know you're not going to do it later, but you say you're going to do it later anyways because it justifies you skipping it in that moment. Maybe it's going out to eat and saying you're only going to have a drink, but then you have 5 and you don't know how to set a boundary with your friends or your husband or whoever it might be that when they're around you, these are called stakeholders. When you're around people whose opinions you value more than you value the opinion of yourself, your behavior will change. And so maybe it's setting boundaries with those people. Maybe it's creating time and communicating to people that I'm going to take 1 hour after work to go to the gym. Maybe it's just having those conversations. You haven't even done anything yet, but you're setting yourself up to be successful by acknowledging all of the things that have made it difficult for you to do this historically, and then having courage to do something different, setting yourself up to behave differently. That's the first thing. And then not trying to do everything all at once. If you think about, I want to lose weight, okay, well, where is the highest leverage opportunity for you? Maybe you have no idea how many calories you consume. Maybe you track infrequently, you're kind of eyeballing stuff, you're trying to eat healthy, but disappointed with the scale not moving. Okay, well, then we need to look at, can we track our food? Can we get a baseline for our eating habits? Do you snack throughout the day? Maybe you focus on eating larger meals and mitigating snacking. Maybe you don't eat that much protein. And so your focus right now is just having protein with every single meal. Those are all momentum in the right direction. The other thing around this is stop expecting it to happen overnight. Let that go. Just aim to be consistent because the side effect of your consistent behavior is change over time. That's how it works. So there's different ways in which you personally, whoever's listening to this, needs to strategize how you're going to go about it. The second thing is, in a tough moment, you will be tempted to behave in a way that you previously did. That's how you've learned to move through life, as I alluded to earlier. If you have a vision for the ideal version of you, the person that you want to become, the version of you that you're like, fuck yeah, I'm awesome, I love myself, she's a bad bitch, I'm proud of her, she's kick ass. No matter what other people think of me, I love that idea of that version of me. That is somebody I can be proud of personally. In a tough moment, if you get clear on who that is, how she acts, how she behaves, how she handles maybe current situations that you struggle with, what would she do? In a tough moment, you can ask yourself with that clarity of mind, what would she do? This is one thing I used a very long time ago when I was struggling with my own stuff, is I sat down and I wrote out a vision for who I wanted to be, how she would act, how she would behave, how she'd set boundaries, how did she take care of herself, what was she doing in her free time, where did she find fulfillment? And I got super duper clear on all of those things. And so when I was stuck in a tough moment, I could just ask myself, what would she do? And then in that moment, I have a choice to make because I'm aware of what she would do. I can do what I've always done, or I can do that. And then that's your choice. You have free will over that decision, but at least you're starting to think about it. And I think all of those little microcosms as to orienting yourself towards an outcome with clear steps, letting go of things that are hindering your progress, taking the largest leverage opportunity that you have, whether it's protein, fiber, steps, training, walking, communicating, setting boundaries, nipping bad habits as far as frequency or gravity of them. That doesn't mean stop them completely, but you can clean them up a bit. All of those things are oriented towards a right direction of change.
If you guys hear both of us speaking right now, you'll notice a few common themes. One is microcosms, micro commitments. I think it's a tough pill for people to swallow to understand that the outcomes that you want do hinge on a combination and a compounding interest of those micro commitments over time. It's not a huge one that you make and then that changes your life. It's a bunch of small ones over time that give you the confidence. The other one is clarity. Clarity. First question you ask, what do you want, Marty? We're watching Noah's Ark. It's Navarro, by the way. That was a good Navarro.
Decent.
What do you want?
Yeah, good.
Right? Thanks. Clarity. What do you want? What do you actually want? And I love that you hit on this. Not what you think you should want, not what everyone else wants for you, not what you feel pressure to contort yourself to be. What do you want? Down to the very emotions you want to experience on a daily basis. The number one emotion that people express to me prior to joining our program, peace. Every single time. Peace. They say they want peace. But the things that you're doing to drive the outcome you want are not bringing you peace. So going about it very differently, and everything you just said is extremely applicable. So if you're note takers, you really need to rewind and listen to that part that Kate just went through and take notes. One of the things that I see people struggling with a lot is integrity. And I don't mean integrity with other people, because what we found is people typically go out of their way to follow through on their word for other people and meet other people's needs and, follow through on that. But their integrity with self is typically what's lacking. When they say make a commitment to themselves, they typically fall short. And then you just like you would view anyone else who doesn't follow through on their word as a flake, you start to view yourself as a flake. So following through on these micro commitments builds your integrity with self to make bigger commitments. You can't make bigger commitments until you follow through on the small ones. I cannot advocate that enough. So, and when you have integrity with self, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity with self, nothing else matters, because you don't trust yourself to follow through on the commitments you make. So making them smaller gives you a fighting chance to follow through so that you can build that integrity with self. And the compound interest of these micro commitments makes the outcome inevitable. But what makes the outcome not inevitable is when you make huge commitments, fall short, feel like a failure, recommit, fall short, feel like a failure, and stay in that constant cycle of feeling like you can't do anything and feeling like you're a piece of crap, when in reality the outcome, the commitment that you made was too big to begin with. That does not make the outcome inevitable. But if you follow through continuously on small ones and then slightly push your growth edge, make a bigger commitment over time, that makes your outcome inevitable. And detach, as I love that you always say this, detach from the time horizon. If you have some unrealistic time horizon in which you're supposed to achieve this outcome, you will continuously be let down when that doesn't come to pass. Everybody's different, by the way. So detach from the time horizon, attach to completing your commitments. If you're going to make one resolution, just make it to complete your commitments. Just say, I will complete my commitments. I will follow through on my commitments, no matter how small. I highly encourage they're small, but just make your commitment to complete your commitments. And that's it. Just leave it at that. And you can't go wrong with that. And the last thing I want to say is, when your approach is extreme and when you're following a diet that is rigid, it doesn't allow navigability for life events. What happens if you're following keto and the luncheon for work has carbs? What happens when people invite you out to eat outside of your fasting window? What happens when you can't drink that gallon of water on 75 hard? Well, guess what? Life is unpredictable. Life events are inevitable. We have never coached anybody that in a 6 to 12 month span did not have some crazy life event come up in the way of a health concern, a family member passing, a job change, a child. Something happens always. It's inevitable. And if what you're doing is so rigid that it doesn't allow for that, you will panic when that life event happens and you can't stick to the carb cycling, keto, fasting, Whole30 protocol that you have adopted in order to dynamically change your eating habits. It won't work. This way, however, does. When you make these micro commitments and you just change your behavior on a very small level and then larger and larger over time, it doesn't disrupt you when a big life event happens. You can keep going and have grace and compassion, and then just get right back on track, because what you were doing wasn't too rigid to begin with.
I love all of this. One thing that you mentioned was like the discrepancy between the values that we state and how we give them to other people versus how we give them to ourselves. So one of the first things that we do on the onboarding call is actually something called a conscious values assessment. And when we do this exercise, we have you list out, and you guys might want to do this yourself, but list out you would say are like 4 to 5 things that you value the most. Like, these are your values. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to ask you, how do you embody that when it comes to other people? And you can score 1 to 10, 10 being, I'm a rock star, I do this every time. 1 being like, I suck at this, I never do it. And then I want you to go, okay, how do I embody this for myself? And what you'll see time and time again is people score significantly lower with themselves than they do with others, which means you don't actually value that thing. If you value that, you live it. And with integrity of a value, you do it whether or not anybody else is there. And so if you want to truly embody those values, you need to start embodying them for yourself. Otherwise, you're just acting. I know that is probably rough to hear, but your life will improve when you actually start to embody the things that you say you value. Not because you need approval, not because you need acceptance, not because you need validation, not because you need people to think that you're something that deep down you're not, but because these are things that you value because you value them. That's the first thing that I would say. The second thing around goals and timelines and expectations and all of that, what I want you to do is actually flip your goal on its head. So instead of saying, my goal is to do these things perfectly, your goal should be to fail as many fucking times as you possibly can in the pursuit of this goal. And the reason for that is that you will learn. And so your goal should be to get better and learn. And I'll tell you a funny story. I used to fear rejection like a lot. And so I never would ask for anything because I'm like, what if it's a burden? What if people don't like it? I did this series where I was like, my goal is to hear no as many times as possible. And so the audacity for me to do that was terrifying at first, but it was actually really fun. On the other side of that, I actually learned that if I ask for what I want or what I need, I can get it. And that was as simple, it might feel really, really ridiculous, but it was very enlightening because it was never as catastrophic as I thought it was going to be. And it actually helped me build a lot of really good relationships in my life. So, with your goal, instead of I need to do it perfectly, I need the scale to go down, I need to execute things on this checklist of items perfectly all the time. If you believe that, you're never actually going to learn to embody it. You're just following a protocol for a certain period of time until you get to the goal and then you stop doing it. Versus, okay, I'm going on vacation and it's the holidays. How did I handle last Christmas? How did I handle the last New Year's? Well, I kind of overate because I'm uncomfortable around my aunt because she's a little unhinged. And so I just find myself at the dessert table because I don't really want to talk to her. Or my in-laws family is really uncomfortable and I'm walking on eggshells, so I just stuff my face. So I don't actually have to talk to anybody. Again, people do these things. I'm not judging you, but if that's your behavior, then you can go, okay, well, instead of avoiding a confrontation with somebody, if somebody brings up a subject that I'm not comfortable discussing, I'm just going to say, I appreciate talking to you, but I'm not going there with you. And just lay it down. It's okay to do that. And then you're not treating yourself poorly because you're uncomfortable in an environment. You're choosing to behave differently. If that's the one goal that you have, this year I'm going to set a boundary with my mom. This year I'm going to set a boundary with my in-laws. This year I'm not going to have that conversation with my aunt. Whatever it might be, just thinking about how can you improve what you're currently doing, not overhaul it, not be perfect, still have whatever you want, unless your goal is I'm just going to have 2 pieces of dessert and I'm not going to draw that out between Christmas and New Year's. I'm going to, whatever your strategy might be, it's not about nipping it in the butt. It's about allowing for you to learn and then incorporate different systems that make you feel good in the aftermath of that decision. Because it doesn't matter what I think about your decisions. It doesn't matter what Mav thinks about your decisions. It doesn't matter what your mom thinks about your decisions or your husband thinks about your decisions, respectfully. But it matters what you think about how you behaved, right? If you feel good no matter what, then you did the right thing. And that's good for you. And I'm proud of you for that. But don't try to make yourself fit a certain mold because you think that that is the thing that makes you enough. It is not. It will never be. As somebody who has spent a decade of my life chasing an invisible authority that would tell me I was good enough, I will tell you it is empty. Don't do that.
I really, really love that you're hitting on boundaries because that's the other side of this. And then I want to wrap this up with what our New Year's aspirations are this year, and then we're gonna go spend time together. Um, once you have peace, you have to protect that peace. Doing all of this will bring your life peace. You have trained people, whether you know it or not, all the people around you, the stakeholders, which I love. I've never heard you say that. You've trained the stakeholders around you to behave in a certain way and treat you a certain way based on how you've shown up. When you show up differently, it will disrupt that. There may be emotional reactivity when you set a boundary because they haven't seen that side of you. That is okay. You have to protect your peace. If you want it to be sustained, you have to protect it. Obviously, when we change our behavior, there is a tendency for humans to overcorrect, and maybe, it may be messy when you first set a boundary, especially if you're used to getting walked on. It may be messy. You still have to do it if you want a different outcome and if you want people to start to respect the way that you're showing up. And you have to protect that peace. If you are used to having your walk interrupted by your 14-year-old daughter whose boyfriend just broke up with her and she expects you to stop what you're doing to come console her, you might need to tell her that you'll be with her in a minute after you finish your walk. She'll be okay. If your husband has been eating bullshit in front of you and you're eating the same serving sizes and that's sabotaging you and doing nothing to him, you might need to change that. You might need to have a very direct conversation with compassion, but still if you want a different outcome, you're going to have to show up differently. Doesn't have to be dynamic. This too can be micro commitments. However, be ready for pushback, resistance, and perhaps reactivity from those who are not used to these new boundaries, and be willing to have composure, understanding, and be able to withstand that so that you can protect your peace. Because at the end of the day, like Kate said, it doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter what anyone else, what do you think? What is your life? And if you've been constantly self-abandoning or contorting so that everyone around you is peaceful, it's probably going to lead to your continuous suffering. And we want to get you out of that. There is a different reality you can live. It takes courage.
And one thing I'll say, and this really hit home when I sat with this, but if you do not believe that you can get what you want, you will teach yourself to want what you can get. Right? So this is where you justify that you should love yourself the way that you are, and life is not that bad, and you can do this later on, or they're really not asking for too much of you, and you have this expected role. And again, like specifically for parenting, I work with a lot of moms, but their perception of what it means to be a good mom is variable. Nevertheless, they try to hit those standards. And so allowing yourself to define, like, what type of mom do you want to be, and what does that look like, and what relationships do you want to cultivate, and what do you want to lead with example by? If your daughter grew up to live the exact same life that you live, is that what you would want for her? Like, that is the crux of all of it. And sometimes that means creating a container for you to live out and embody the things that you would want for them and your son too. I'm not just trying to make this about daughters, but you get my point. The second thing is, whenever we start to make changes, yes, boundaries are important, but I will also always emphasize how you discuss something is more important than what you discuss. So you can go in and let's just bring up the daughter breakup example, right? Your daughter who's 14, it might be her first breakup. She might be struggling. She thinks it's the end of the world. Her life is over. Her heart is broken. Like, if you've ever, I remember my first heartbreak, so I was definitely probably more dramatic than I needed to be. But my mom and I actually used to run a lot together. My mom and I used to go for walks a lot together. And so it may be like, hey, you know what? Let's get out and let's go for a walk and talk about this. Let's get some fresh air, right? You can still be there and be supportive unless you're having a time where mentally and emotionally you cannot give her the support that she needs right now. Maybe you do need to say, I really need to take a moment and then I'll come back and be here for you, right? So it's not about making it this assertive thing. It's more so like, can I communicate clearly about what I need? And especially for people whose opinions you value, your husband, your children, your parents, asking for their support. I've really been struggling with trying to get my health in check, and I appreciate how supportive you've been throughout our entire relationship together. But in this moment, these are the things that I'm struggling with, and I would like to ask for whether it's help. So you're asking, especially if you like the food example with your husband, like maybe you ask them to help you solve that problem, right? I love eating with you. I love that we eat the same things, but I'm noticing that I'm not really seeing progress. And I think that we eat the same things. When you make stuff for me, would you mind minimizing the amount of X, Y, or Z that you make for me? They'll probably be very willing to do that. I don't think people intentionally try to self-sabotage goals, but I think you can ask for support and help instead of going, well, you do this and you always give me so much food and you're the reason why I'm not losing weight, or you always bring home pizza and you always make me eat it. It's like, no, you need to also take responsibility for where you are, right? They can still enjoy their lives. Mav likes pizza. I freaking hate pizza. He can still eat pizza. I don't have to eat pizza. We can still have dinner together. I don't have to eat the same way that he does, nor is he sabotaging my health or my goals because he wants to eat in a certain way.
The rice example, we had that.
We've done that. Yeah. And so it's like little things where it's nobody else's fault that you are where you are. It's also maybe not your fault entirely, but it is your responsibility. And you are the only person who can make a difference for yourself. And so I encourage you to believe that you can get what you want, but you will have to start taking on different challenges, even in the face of fear. And being brave has nothing to do with not feeling fear. It's moving through that and making the different decision anyways. And so I always tell my clients, you just have to be brave for the first 20 seconds because all of your adrenaline, blood pressure, heart rate, fear is alleviated when you have the evidence that you didn't have previously. But that takes a little bit of courage. So give yourself 20 seconds, be brave, take a deep breath, choose differently, and then allow yourself to collect the feedback that says everything is okay.
Y'all fucking got this. We believe in you. That's why we do this. We want you to hear this, implement, and then tell us how things are going midway through the year. We believe in you, and we hope this was really helpful for those of you going into the new year and wanting to make some changes. That was our whole intent with this. So appreciate you listening. I'm sure people are going to ask.
Well, I was going to say this too, just as a bonus. If you listened all the way through, I actually do have a vision assignment and values assessment sheet that we do with our clients that if you would like access to, you will have to DM me on Instagram and ask me for it, but I will give it to you.
What's the keyword they should DM you?
2025.
2025. DMK 2025 for the
sheet that I'll give you.
The sheet that she'll give you.
Yeah. It's like
Awesome.
a workbook, so I can't call it one thing.
Dang, you had a little bonus prepared. I didn't even know about it.
Yeah, it just came to me. I was like, I can give back.
Little bonus.
You gave me your time. I'll give you something in return.
I'll give you something.
I hope it was valuable time spent, by the way. But
trying to spend some time with you.
what is your goal
For this year? No flirting on the podcast. Got it.
That's a goal?
No, I was just
Oh, that sucks.
mental note.
Don't be that way. You're the one sitting all the way over there. I can't even touch it with my whole leg out.
We wanted to. This is how we decided to sit because the camera. Anyway, goal for this year, man. So we've got our 2 monsters that we want to grow to a certain, point. We have our hormone monster. We have our coaching monster. A monster being our companies. Doing those together is amazing. We want to obviously build those. I don't know if there's like a specific place for this year. We can talk more about that specifically, but obviously that's a big focal point for us. I think for me, I'm just going to go personal with it because I think everybody sees what we're doing on social media. I think for me, I want to continue to understand myself more and more. The more I understand myself, the more, like I said earlier in this episode, the more compassion and patience I have for you. And you and I have done a lot of shit. 2024 was a crazy, crazy year in the best of ways. And I want to build on who I am as a partner. I want to build on who I am as a father. I want to build on who I am as my skill deficits within business and within content creation and leadership. I want to learn more about human behavior. I want to learn more about philosophy. I find those things interesting when I actually sit down and read. I want to also be very intentional with us time and experience and moments. And, 2024 had a lot of those. I think 2025 is going to have probably twice as many. Looking forward to that. I want us to grow in our relationship. I want us to grow as individuals and collectively. I want us to have many more experiences with Bean. I mean, like best time of my life is when all 3 of us are just being crazy together, wrestling, watching a show, playing video games, whatever it is, even in the car on the rides to school and back. I cherish those times. So just obviously achieving the things that we want to achieve, but for me, continuing to emphasize presence and aliveness, wholeness within the relationship and within ourselves, and all the wonderful memories that we're making as a byproduct of all those things. Like I'm just thrilled with where we're going. I'm very much looking forward to this year. I don't have any quantifiable metrics I can say that I want to achieve. I just want to grow in all those areas and continue to just build my integrity. I'm very proud of the integrity that I cultivated this year. I think this 2024 was the year that it finally all clicked, and that's due in large part to you. So this might have been the most impactful year of my life, if I was being honest, and you have a lot to do with that. So and then I just get grateful. So I'm very proud of who I am going into this new year. I'm leaving this year better than I found it, and I can't say that about most years. At least it didn't feel that way. So I'm just thrilled. I'm thrilled to go into this year with who I am and who I've become, and I want to continue to grow. And I'm thrilled to do that with you.
Well, now you're going to make me emotional on the podcast. Thank you. That's incredibly kind. And I can say wholeheartedly, I'm very proud of you. Very proud to be yours. Very proud to be doing what we're doing. It's way better than doing it alone. That's for sure. For me, as far as like specific goals, so I am on the support for fulfillment side. So I want to make sure that I can help build the skill sets that our team needs to make them better coaches. I can measure that. So I do want to look at the metrics and make sure that we see those things compound. That's my responsibility to them. And I will do that. For our business ventures, I want to learn as much as I can from the people that we are going to be learning from. And just continue to be who I need to be in order to make those things happen, for ourselves, for our team, for what we want. So that's my responsibility to um, fail quickly and learn rapidly. Personally, I am very much interested in the integration of myself in many different ways. It's interesting for me because I always think about there are many versions of me I have not met yet, and I'm excited to meet them because I know that, like, the things that we're doing, what we're pursuing, building a family, like, those will require different parts of me to lead. I'm used to a very specific part of me leading the majority of the time, and I'm very grateful for that part of me. It's done a lot of great things. But inevitably, life evolves, and I will evolve with it. I'm very confident in that. I don't know who I will be at the end of 2025. I am very inspired by the idea of the opportunities that I have, and I trust myself to rise to the occasion in which those opportunities demand of me. As a partner, as a leader, as a creator, I would like to, like, as a specific goal, I would like to publish a book by the end of the year.
You're
I
going
would
to.
like to write that, get it done, and publish that. So that is one specific goal personally that I could probably orient towards. Um, but I want to, this year for me was the first time in a long time. My life from 2020 to 2024 felt like it was on pause. It was like everything happened, but nothing happened. And I did a lot of my own personal development, but I've always done that in isolation. So um, I feel as though this year for me was the first time I felt in my body alive in moments. Like, usually I'm trying to predict what I need to do and how to solve problems and who I need to show up for, or how do I need to get this done, or what is expected of me and how do I go about doing that. Like, that's pretty much my life in my brain. But I've been able to silence that a lot and just be, which for me has always been very difficult because I'm a doer. So finding the balance in the ever necessary entanglement of being and doing for me was illuminated a lot this year. And continuing to understand myself, and work through, yeah, hearing other parts of me. I think that sounds probably insane to anybody who's listening, but learning to allow those parts to have a voice and grow in that. And so I'm just grateful, excited, optimistic, and yeah, adrenaline's going. I'm ready for it.
Fuck around and find out.
FAFL.
Got-
Without doubt.
Guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, leave comments. You can do that on Spotify now. That's a thing. This is obviously a very new. We're putting we created a new podcast for Counterpoint. So leave us ratings, reviews, get this thing going. It's something that we love to do, and we hope you love it too. So if you like it, let us know. DM us suggestions for topics. But we appreciate you listening. We hope you have the most amazing 2025 you possibly can, and we really appreciate your support. So thanks for listening.
Thank you for your time. Good job.
We'll see you later.
See you bye.
See you bye now. We'll see you. See you bye.